Hello.
Hi, we are live.
Hello.
We're live on two different platforms
That's
today.
Right.
And I'm looking in one camera, Amy's looking in another camera. We're very happy you guys joined us for another episode of He Said, She Sang. Now let's switch.
He said, she sang, they heard.
They heard. I'm Alex Stein. This is Amy Engelhardt. And we are here to do some stories and songs for you this afternoon.
Yes, and
or evening.
We used to do this, and we will do this again. And we'll sign as if we were live, but I think it's completely backwards.
It may be backwards on both things.
Which
it says latecomers will be seated at the discretion of the management,
which is still true.
So,
but they'll be seated backwards. So,
without further ado, or is there further ado?
No, there's no further ado.
All right, I'm going to start.
Alex is going to kick us off.
I am a big aficionado, big fan of. It's published an autobiography called Life, and if you haven't read it, you definitely need to read it, or better yet, listen to the audiobook, because the audiobook starts out with Keith Richards reading it, and then for some reason that's never stated, it switches to Johnny Depp, and then about halfway through, it switches to some other Irish guy, and then I think it switches back to Johnny Depp, and it might even switch back to Keith Richards at the end. It is really wonderful and insane and over the top. And I have written a lost chapter from Keith Richards' autobiography, Life. And the best thing about this, perhaps, is that it gives me a chance to use my really bad British accent.
It's very bad.
My cataclysmic tidal waves of creativity began to spiral the wrong way down the musical drain in 1974. It wasn't my fault. As we'll see in chapter 9, I can play guitar in a hurricane while being orally pleasured by midgets dressed as goats riding giraffes. So it wasn't me. There's only one person to blame in this sordid tale, and that's Mick. We'd become estranged following his refusal to help bring a container ship of cocaine from a remote Peruvian port to my home outside Geneva. Mick dismissed the idea as impractical, claiming Switzerland is landlocked. Turns out the bugger's right. Also, I couldn't stand whatever hateful slag of a wife he had at the time. Note to editor, insert correct name before publication. What really came between us was when he started writing songs on his own, and he was gifted, the bastard. Mick thought I wouldn't mind because I'd spent most of that year doing copious amounts of heroin, chasing it with pure pharmaceutical-grade cocaine transported to the house by strippers wearing hemp clothing, syringe jewelry, and speedball underwear. God, I miss the 70s. What Mick didn't realize was I'd already cleaned up. Gone cold turkey for the last time, like the song goes. Maybe the last time, I don't know. When you've spent as much time as I have, shitting your own bed, coming off smack, there's only two choices. Now, I forget what the first one is, but the second is to write the most brilliant song in the history of the universe that puts all other songwriters to shame. And I chose, as I did every time I quit drugs, to write the fucking song. Now, Mick and I were different people. His life experience was limited. His drug use was far less prolific than mine. He never smoked ganja from a watermelon while 6 Rastas held rusty shooters to his head and Anita Pallenberg recited the value of pi to 300 decimal places. It is even now a sign of unending shame for the British press that Anita is far less famous for her mathematical wizardry than for lifting a Mars bar with her twat, which never happened, and if it had, it would have been merry and faithful, judging by her early embrace of Kegel exercises and tantric sex. So fuck you, Sting, you wanker. Had Edmund to star her. Note to self, please double check whether the bitch is still breathing. If so, change it to someone more dead and therefore slightly less likely to litigate. Anyway, back to the Dickensian winter of 1972, soon to turn 1973, and eventually 1974, which is how it went those days. Mick came waltzing in with David Bowie, and they were thick as thieves, if by thieves you mean homosexual lovers. Now, I'm not claiming that Mick was doing David or David was doing Mick. I never saw each one's Ginger and the other's Rogers, if you know what I mean, but I did manage to see them often enough not fucking each other, senseless to know. Being psychic has always been one of my claims to fame, that and the ability to play breathtaking solos while not entirely conscious. And when you see it to show off, and I said, what you got there, fick-mucking Jagger? Too embarrassed to tell me he's harmonizing with Bowie if you can decipher my incredibly sophisticated, slightly homophobic, in the way we all were back then, coded language. Mick whispered, it's only rock and roll, and Bowie said, laughing gnome, that he was not 6 years previous making novelty records for teen boppers, but I like it. I stared daggers at them, then threaded the tape into the machine. Not me personally, but I ordered my valet to instruct the engineer to have his assistant do it. And this was in the glory days. Why, you would take 7 grams of coke just to mic the drums, which is why, by the way, I never listened to Rush. I mean, they got so many drums, I don't even think there's enough cocaine in the whole world to record that. Now, give me Charlie in a 4-piece kit any day, even if he keeps sneaking in jazz licks like he's Gene fucking Krupa. I can't get no satisfaction. And not if I can't, mate, because I wrote the fucking song in my fucking sleep, as discussed in chapter fucking 6. After we listened to the tape, I thought, Sodom both. This is a #1 record, and I need that for the Stones right now. If only because this veritable mountain of heroin I'm planning to slowly insert into my anal cavity over the next fortnight is not going to pay for itself. Although, if it did, that would be cool until it became self-aware like Skynet of heroin, or to quote an alternate universe Truman Capote if he wrote science fiction instead of whatever the fuck it is that he did. But I knew I had to placate Bowie. So I pulled out my guitar and I played some shite I'd written and never bothered to finish. Some crap about floating in a motherfucking tin can. Planet Earth is blue and there's fuck all I can do. And that kind of thing, you know, C major with E minor harmonics. And Bowie shrieks like a little girl, like a junky, thin little girl with pretty dyed hair and 2 different colored eyes. And he says, that's my fucking song, mate. And I said, sure, yeah, you can have it. My font of musical genius is bottomless. And he said, no, you fuckwad. I wrote that song. I recorded it 5 years ago. It was re-released as a single this year, and it went to #1 in 35 different countries. And I said, 35, huh? Wow, you're welcome. I guess I'm better than I thought. I wiped his vocals off of Mick's song that evening, adding my own distinctive harmonies. Now, my barrister wants me to clarify that I'm not advocating that you do smack, because it worked so well for me. Now, I know I'm healthier since I quit for good and had my last fix in 1979 and again in 1981 and twice more in 1983. But I sure got a fuck ton done on the dope. And if you claim, I can't write anything good without being I, or my life is significantly less exciting when I'm not driving 700 miles in the middle of the night to find the one guy in Prague who supplies pure cocaine to laboratory animals, never mind that we humans are all really just well-behaved animals in the laboratory that we call life. Let me point you to the exact moment we stopped viewing our songs as music and started to see them as product to be pushed out the door to keep the distribution pipeline running. You want to know when the most dangerous band in the world became glorified factory workers? Sure you do. But that's another story for another time. A story whose villain is one Sir Michael Philip Jagger, better known round these parts as Mick the Prick. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Amy Engelhardt.
Oh, by the way, I turned your phone Wi-Fi off so that because we have so much Wi-Fi going right now. That's good. That's good. Hi. And it was slowing everything down. And then I closed all the tabs on your laptop except the ones that were relevant.
Okay. I'm sure everyone on the live stream is.
I'm sure you're thrilled to hear about that. We're chatting as Alex, if we're chatting at all. And since we have my laptop and phone working here. Out on 33 West, overgrown and wild in July, late at night, always best. So I took you out there to see the sky, took you out there to see Gorham Hill. I knew just what to say. You were smart, you were funny, I was flattered, and I needed someone else to lead the way. So we stayed up there till I made sure you mattered. We stayed up there till I made sure I'm Gorham Hill. Stars overhead, the backseat bed, home till the tell me I will be alright. Out on 33 West, desperation and the moon. Oh, I pushed so hard, no one passed the test, and the midnight wine was always gone too soon. The midnight wine was always gone. Now a family park where my daughter likes to play in the light. Don't go after dark. We have all moved on to brighter days. We have all moved on to Gorham Hill. Oh, Thank you. Somebody says, I'm very glad to see one of your shows, finally. I can't see who it is, though, because I'm too far away from the screen. Cool. Welcome again. I'm doing a bunch of tunes that I don't normally do here today. Let's see. I'm thinking maybe something somewhat goofy. What do you think? You know, if for those of you who don't know us, perhaps, we have two amazing kitty cats. Oh, that's good. I feel Alex just brought down a light from his lighting thing, and I kind of feel like one of those wieners and Woolworths on the thing that goes around. Okay, so this is in celebration of our feline friends, and this actually has not been recorded, and it may go on my new album, which hopefully at some point I'll get to do. And it's ironic because the new album is called Finish What You. Alrighty, he's gonna try and figure out where the best place to have this light is. I think that's the best place, but you can't stand there holding it. All right. God of the sofa seems so sweet, domesticated, craving treats, stalking a spider till the dawn, flashing incisors with a lazy yawn. Draw me in with a purr, you are still a chewer. Black Panther leaps out of the carpet castle. Black Panther eats whatever kitty wants. Black Panther creeps behind the love seat pillows, and Black Panther sleeps in the den or on my lap once again. God of the Mayans, sleek and strong, muscle and instinct are wild and long. Top of the food chain, it was sad. Spoke to the living and the dead. Huge and powerful paws, not to mention the jaws. Black Panther leaps inside the hissing jungle. Black Panther pounces on a squeaky toy. Black Panther creeps behind a thick dark wood, and Black Panther sleeps in the den, then hunts the forest again. Animal Planet show, that show, the one with the tigers long ago. How Meow was somehow tame. Black Panther leaps out of the hissing jungle. Black Panther pounces on a squeaky toy that kitty wants. Black Panther creeps behind a thick dark wood of love seat pillows, daring me to rub her tummy, staring at me, yummy, a jaguar with fresh scoop litter.
Woo!
Whoa, indeed. Okay, so thank you so much to Hannah for having us on this platform. I also want to say that there are some bonuses involved today. If you would like to contribute to the Amy and Alex buy cat food and groceries fund, you're very welcome to do so. How can we do that, Amy? Well, you can do it like this. You can tip us at what is backwards PayPal, which is
actually forwards on this one.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Which is IAREmusic@gmail. You can send us anything you would like. Or Venmo. Hey, double-sided printing. We live in the future. And that's at Amy-Engelhardt.
And obviously this is for people who are still working and have the money. If you are not working, if you like us and you have lost all of your gigs, obviously just enjoy this.
Yes,
and
don't
this
send
is
us anything.
this is what you want. And I know that a lot of people are strapped, and a lot of people are asking for your attention and support. So never feel bad because you've already done it. And you can get us next time or whenever.
That's right. It'll happen.
It'll happen.
It'll happen when the world is the world again. And I can also say, however, that if you do give us $10 or more,
okay,
you get a free download of my first album, which is called Not Gonna Be Pretty. So how's
and
that?
It's really good. And what I'm not supposed to say? It's really good.
No, but it's kind of a weird. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. All right, that thus ends the pledge drive for now.
The pledge drive portion of the
pledge drive version of the
of
right
the
now.
universe. Okay, so
all right, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Stein.
Oh, look, it's me. I'll just put this here and blind myself partially.
I forgot to warn you about that.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it. So this is a brand new piece. It's called Watermelon. Spoiler alert, I live, and these days that's something. Nearly every day during this quarantine, I go out for a walk. It reminds me of my connection to the earth and the sky and the community I live in. It lets me think for an hour or so that maybe, just maybe, everything is fine. And I keep my social distancing and I wear protection and I've stopped petting the dogs I come across. And that second fact about the dogs just makes me really, really sad. I also sometimes will go into our local supermarket or Target stores just to keep track of what's in stock and what's hard to get. I do that a lot less often now because I feel guilty whenever I go into a store. But this is a step up from the pre-pandemic times when I would go into Ralph's nearly every day and I rarely bought more than 2 or 3 items at a time. And back then, they didn't charge, by the way, for cash back if you purchased something. So for years, I actually referred to our local grocery store as the First National Bank of Ralph's. So the other day, I go into my local Ralph's, which is just a few blocks away from my apartment. And if you've been here, you go out, you turn left again, and then you walk a few blocks and it's right there. And I primarily was there because there was no line outside. And when there's no line outside a store these days, I go in. I bought a few things like bread, which during pandemics, I'd like to remind you, has absolutely no carbs. And I got some other stuff, and I got a mini watermelon because they are delicious. Regardless of pandemic status, watermelons are good. And I came home and I jumped through all the hoops that you're supposed to jump through now when you buy groceries, keeping stuff outside, sterilizing a counter, cleaning and sterilizing all the packaging, washing all the produce with hot water and soap, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, a half hour after all of that started, 45 minutes after I walked into the house, I'd put everything away and the now clean watermelon was all ready to cut into. And by then, I felt like I deserved a watermelon-y treat. So I ate it up. I cut it up. I put most of it in a newly cleaned and sterilized container, went right into the fridge. I put a little bit in a newly sterilized bowl, and I had a few pieces, which are delicious because watermelon. I was distracted because, aren't we all these days? And I guess I ate too fast, or I didn't chew the pieces enough because it's watermelon, right? And honestly, we're in a pandemic, so chewing each bite of watermelon 20 times might not seem like the most important thing in my life. So a few minutes later, I started feeling like some of the watermelon was caught in my throat. And that's not good. But at first, it was just uncomfortable and didn't seem like that big a deal. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just sit down on the couch for a minute and it'll all work itself out. But it did not. And if I'm being truthful, I've had problems with getting watermelon stuck in my throat before. I've developed a bit of a protocol. So I moved on to the next step, which always worked before, having a drink of water to wash the watermelon down my throat. That has never failed me before the pandemic. And sometimes it's a little painful, but it just washes the watermelon right down. This time, it didn't work. This time, I can't quite swallow the water. The water goes around halfway down my throat, and I feel my throat tightening, but everything still feels fine until it doesn't. And my lungs and throat and stomach all contort themselves, trying to do something to force the watermelon back up. Suddenly, the water I just drank comes up out of my throat and I spit it out into the sink. But just the water, not the watermelon, because that's still stuck. And then my body decides I should start coughing because maybe that will dislodge the watermelon from my throat. But it doesn't. And then I start worrying. My next door neighbor is going to think that I have coronavirus because I'm coughing. And I think of loudly saying, it's okay, I just swallowed the wrong way, and I weigh whether or not that's a good idea. And I decide it is, and I open my mouth, but nothing, no sound comes out of it, because that is the exact moment I realize I cannot breathe. And I think about calling for Amy, who is downstairs on a conference call. But it's hard to shout for help when you can't breathe. And I waste a few seconds trying to figure out if I can shout by just exhaling and expelling air from me. And then I start worrying about whether it's a good idea to be exhaling the few little bits of air that I still have left in my lungs when I literally cannot breathe anything in. And maybe because too many things are happening at the same time now, but between the coughing and the gagging and the gasping, I start getting a little bit worried. And I think, at what point, how long can you go without breathing? At what point does brain death start to set in? And then I think, oh, well, the answer to that clearly is 2015. And I resolve to remember that because I think it's kind of funny. Although I also wonder if I'm still going to think it's funny when oxygen has been restored to my brain. And also, how long does it take for an ambulance to get here? We're not that far from a hospital, but I don't know that the ambulances actually come from hospitals these days. I think they come from like a third party point. And I'm wondering how long it will take them to get there. And I also think maybe I'll already be dead if I get into the ambulance before they get me back to the hospital, even though that's only about 2 miles. And then I think, oh, I should call 911. And I remember that I can't actually talk at this point. And then I wonder if you can text 911, because all the kids are texting these days, and that would be good. So do they take text messages? And as I'm thinking of all of this, it occurred to me that this may in fact be the stupidest way in the world to die during a pandemic, having watermelon stuck in your throat because you didn't chew it enough times. Although, in fairness, who does that anyway, even in non-pandemic times? Answer: yes, it would be the stupidest way in the world to die. And no one chews watermelon 20 times for a mouthful under normal circumstances, although I've officially lost track of time and I can't honestly remember what or when normal circumstances are. And then I start to feel guilty about having my fantasy trip to the hospital, even though because hospitals have enough to deal with these days without my foolishness, even though my hospital visit is only a technicality within that fantasy, because the reality is I'm stuck at home, unable to breathe. And then things take a turn for the worse when I start thinking about how I'm about to full on vomit, which I'm pretty sure is a bad thing to do when you're not breathing. And I wonder if the autopsy will even show the watermelon stuck in my throat, or maybe I'll just be counted as a corona death, because when they interview my neighbor, surely she's going to say, I did hear him coughing a lot towards the end. And I wonder if they're even doing autopsies on possible coronavirus deaths. I mean, they don't even have the proper personal protective equipment for hospital workers. Are they really going to risk doing autopsies? And by the way, how long does coronavirus stay in a dead body? Plus, if I'm not around, surely no one, not even Alanis Morissette, will be able to appreciate the irony of spending 45 minutes sanitizing groceries and disinfecting everything, only to die in an instant from eating too fast because watermelon. And while I'm pondering the physics of self-Heimliching, I come up with the hypothesis that it probably was watermelon and not an apple that Adam and Eve were tempted with in the Garden of Eden. And And I scoff because that's just a story, and I don't believe in the literal Garden of Eden. And I'm not even sure what the physical manifestations of scoffing even would be. And maybe it's something about the scoffing that causes a little bit of air to reach my lungs as I'm gasping, even though the wonderful, delicious, deadly watermelon is still stuck there in my throat. And I grab a tissue because although I'm not sure why, there's something about the act of blowing my nose that can clear things that are sometimes stuck in my throat. And I guess it has to do with the force of or movement of the air. And I stop to think about it for a moment until I realize that I'm still not breathing, and scoffing about my lack of medical training does nothing. So I blow my nose and there are tears coming out of my eyes and I'm coughing, but the nose blowing manages to knock the little piece of watermelon loose and I'm able to spit it out into the sink. And it's such a tiny amount of food to have caused so much trouble, but I can breathe again, even though I have irritated my throat. And for the next hour, I just cough, and I'm worried that by now, my neighbor must be convinced that I'm sick. And if I yell out, "It's just because watermelon is delicious," she will surely think I'm insane, more so than usual. Circling back to where we started, I'm fine. And these days, that's something. And although I am opposed to the storytelling cliche of summing up what you learned in the last paragraph, there is a clear takeaway from all of this, even in a pandemic. It is very important to chew each bite of food 20 times, even if it's just watermelon. That's a true story, but
it is. And I also want to say two things. One, I don't actually like hearing songs. I don't actually like hearing stories about pandemics. And I'm like, people, get up and they share this whole, or there's even challenges that have been issued. Write a so-and-so, 5-minute piece about your pandemic experience. And I just have to say that I don't understand that. Why would you want to hear about that? That's the last thing I personally want to hear about, is this, and I want to forget about it as soon as it stops. I want to go somewhere else in art. God damn it.
You could go behind the piano.
I could go behind the piano. Okay, I'm going to do that. And I want to also point out, before I go behind the piano, that I am wearing a really nice top, but I'm wearing pajamas on the bottom. And I think and hope that some of you are too. Oh, that's cool, because you could, at least on both feeds, you can see our champagne bottle, which is in really sad shape.
I could have blown it up before the live feed started, but I didn't.
Yeah, I think a little bit. That's all right. No, we shouldn't blow it up because it's a metaphor for our lives right now, that they're only partially inflated. I can't see this because my assistant printed this out in a font that is way too small. So my assistant is fired, which means I'm fired.
Oh, the cat's not your assistant?
No.
All right.
I don't do this one a lot. There is a monster in this box. Do not look at the box. Do not think about the monster. Now you're thinking about the monster in this box. Do not look in the box. Do not think about the monster. A heart-shaped box. A box-shaped heart. Hide away inside away. Turn it into art. A heart-shaped box. A box-shaped heart in me. not look in the box. Do not think about the puppy. Now you're thinking about the puppy in this box. Do not look in the box. Do not think about the puppy. A heart-shaped box, a box-shaped heart. Hide away inside away. Turn it into art. A heart-shaped box, a box-shaped heart. The power of suggestion is stronger than the truth. Why don't you question what I say? I tell you I'm a puppy. I could be a monster. I want you to wanna look right away. There is a question in this box. Look in the box. Look in the box. Look in the box. Oh, yeah. A heart-shaped box. A box-shaped heart. Hide away inside away and turn it into art. A heart-shaped box. A box-shaped heart in me. In me. Look in the box. Look in the box. Thank you. Thank you. I was actually thinking that, that could be about a New York apartment. A heart-shaped box. Thinking about all of you in New York who are watching this right now, as I do every morning. Miss you. Love you. Just thinking about you. I'm going to do... I haven't done anything like super goofy, have I? I was thinking maybe I would do
Not since the live stream started.
Not... Alex said not since the live stream started. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm going to do a cover tune. Oh my God, it's something I didn't write. Gosh, I rarely do this one, but I think it's really fun. This was recently named one of the top 20 oogiest songs of the 80s. And I think it's apparent why. And when I do it, it's really apparent why. And also, I've reharmonized it just to make it a little bit more interesting. Josie's on a vacation far away. Come around and talk it over. So many things that I want to say. You know I like my girls a little bit older. I just want to use your love tonight. I just want to use your love tonight. Ain't got many friends left to talk to. Nowhere to run when I'm in trouble. You know I'd do anything for you. Stay the night but keep it undercover. I just want to use your love tonight. I don't want to lose your love tonight. but my mind's not making sense. It's been a while since we were alone. I can hide the way I'm feeling. As you're leaving, please won't you close the door? And don't forget what I told you. Just 'cause you're right don't mean that I'm wrong. I'm stopping because my phone is giving a message that says that I'm getting data loss. Can you check that out? Internal storage space? Is that okay? Resume. Sorry. My phone just totally freaked out, but I wanted to make sure the thing was happening. All right, I'll start from the bridge. That never happened. Try to stop, my hands are shaking, but my mind's not making sense. It's been a while since we were alone. I can't hide the way I'm feeling. As we're leaving, please don't you close the door. Don't forget what I told you. Just 'cause you're right don't mean that I'm wrong. Another shoulder to cry upon. I just wanna use your love tonight. I don't wanna lose your love tonight. Everyone sing. I don't wanna lose your love tonight. I just wanna use your love tonight. 'Cause love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have this town, right? Don't you take it. You're gonna make it after all. You're gonna make it after all. Why do you think my phone is doing that? That's crazy.
Did you ever, when you were getting the message that said that you were running out of space on your phone, did you ever do anything about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll address that later. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Stein.
All righty. Wonder how long it'll take to do that again.
I don't know, but you want me to stand here and wait?
No, I can reach out and do things when it does that.
It's still powered up, right?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the power is not the problem. This is also an older piece, but it's a piece that I just rediscovered, and I really like it, although I haven't done it very much. This is called The Flim-Flam Sound of the Flibberty Gibbets, and it is about one of my favorite things in the before times, which is working out in public in a coffee shop. There's a sound of the spheres, soft and low, primal, almost undetectable, the sound of hearts beating, wind blowing, the sound of magnets seeking north. It's not a sound that you hear often, but when you do, it's magical. The guy at the Starbucks in the wool cap sits down next to me. Can you help me? He says. It's clear he's desperate, and my first thought is that he wants money. So I steel myself to tell him I have no money, which is almost true. I've got 35 cents in cash. It's cold, he says. It's cold in the wilderness. I nod. This makes sense. This seems logical. There's a machine, he tells me, and it's going to destroy the earth. I look at him carefully, search his eyes for signs of madness. How do you know? I ask him. I've seen it. I've seen it used already to destroy much of the earth. Listen, I tell him, there's a cold wind whipping across the Arctic. Yes, it's March, but there are no creatures living there who can read calendars. I say this to test him, and it seems to make sense, but it's floating without context, without reason, without meaning. Plus, it's January, not March. Yes, he exclaims, banging on the table. Yes, yes, yes. His madness is not quite something you can grasp. It slips between your fingers. His elusive clarity shimmers in the Californian sunlight, sliding in and out of reason. We say nothing for a moment. He revels in the feeling that he's found a kindred spirit while I contemplate ways to get him to leave me alone. I need your help, he says. You have to give me the number of CNN. The phone number of CNN in Atlanta? Yes, he says. I have breaking news. It's important, vital. I want to tell them about the scrim. An image comes into my mind. I should keep quiet, but I can't help myself. The scrim floats above the tundra, I tell him, flapping in the wind. The animals sense there's something happening and try to figure it out. No, he tells me. It doesn't float. It rolls. I shake my head. Scrims don't have wheels. They don't roll. They float. They fly. They soar. He becomes angry. This is not how the machine works. I should know. I invented it. I reach into my pocket and pull out a small washer I found on the ground next to my car. I thought I'd ask my neighbor if he dropped it, but I didn't. So instead, I place it between us on the table. The man in the wool cap stares at it. Where'd you get that? He says. I shrug. I say nothing. It can't work without that piece, he mutters. It just can't work. You shouldn't go on CNN, I tell him. You can't confess you're destroying the world with a machine that won't even work. Even Wolf Blitzer will recognize that, and he's an idiot. Yes, he says, I'm tired of the flim-flam sounds of the Flibberty Gibbets. Soon the time will be upon us. He reaches for the washer. I could repair it. I could put it back together. I grab the washer away from him. I'm not going to give you the phone number to CNN. Any national news site will do, he says. International, too. The Flibberty Gibbets, I ask? Yes, the flim-flam sound. Pink, pampered parasols, I say to him. He frowns. These words don't even make sense. That doesn't mean anything. Side effect of the machine. Maybe, I offer. He thinks about it for a second, leans back in his chair, shows no sign he's ever going to leave. Did they send you? He asks. No, I'm here on my own, I say. No one sent me. Are you going to stop me? He asks. I look at him. He thinks I'm contemplating his question. He doesn't need to know I'm making a shopping list. I need cheese and half and half. Then again, we all need cheese and half. His eyes dart back and forth. He looks around at the other customers. I could use a Shiraz, he says. Do they serve that here? This is Starbucks, I tell him. They don't sell venti Shiraz. I'm growing bored. I'm getting sarcastic. He doesn't even notice this. He only hears what he wants to hear. Finally, he turns to me, concerned. Do the foxes know you're here? I lean forward conspiratorially. The foxes don't know anything. His eyes go wide. That's what I've always said, he says. But no one would believe me. No one wants to cross the foxes, I tell him. He suddenly remembers something. CNN, he says. I shake my head. Foxes. Wait, foxes run CNN, he says? I look at him, stare right into his eyes. Ted Turner is 1/8 fox. Tell no one. And then I slide the washer back across the table to him, and he grabs it, puts it in his pocket, and gets up. He scratches his head under the front of the wool cap as he walks to a table across the room. I watch the baristas watch him. They're wary. Clearly, they have kicked him out of here dozens of times before, and they're tired from too many hours of Diana Krall music played on repeat. He sits down opposite a man reading on an iPad. You need to give me the number for CNN, he says. The barista starts to move out from behind the counter. The guy with the iPad moves back in his chair. I stand and bounce on the balls of my feet. Foxes, I yell out, and everyone in the place turns to look at me, including the guy in the wool cap. The guy with the iPad gathers his things and moves to the door. I slowly sit back down. The guy in the wool cap joins everyone else in the place, staring at me. Flim-flam sound, he says. Then he screams it over and over. Flim-flam sound of the Flibberty Gibbets. He runs out of the shop. There's a purity in his movements. It's crazy and ungrounded and wild, misguided, but free. No one is staring at me anymore. A barista comes over and gives me a free pumpkin scone. Thanks for getting rid of him, he says. He comes in here every other day claiming he wants people to stop him from destroying the world. What did you tell him? I shrug and say, I just told him that the real people who are destroying the world use paranoia, fear, and subterfuge to decimate our desire for change. They buy our complacency with advertisements for things we don't need as a way of making us forget what our souls really want. I told him the real masters of the world stay hidden in the shadows, seeking a convenient scapegoat, preferably one driven crazy by the media. And I told him if he's not careful, the foxes will come down from the mountains, capture him, and put him on CNN. The barista nods, uncertain. There's nothing in the corporate manual indicating how to respond to something like that. So he leaves me with, well, enjoy the scone, and moves back behind the counter. I nibble at the pumpkin scone. The sounds of Starbucks seem to bubble up and then disappear down some sonic rabbit hole. And there's something behind it, soft and low, primal. I listen, really listen, for the first time in years, tune out the flim-flam sounds of the flibberty-gibbets, searching for the almost undetectable musical sound of the spheres. Stop, reorient your ears, reposition your brain. If you listen really hard, really closely, you can hear it.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
There's a cat on my lap.
I have to press this button. Sorry. Don't panic. Everything's okay. There are weird tech things. Sorry about them. Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Engelhardt. Hecla, let her up.
I just displaced the cat and she was not happy about it.
I'm gonna try to give you a kitty cameo. It was requested. So let's try to do this thing.
What if you just flip it? Can you flip it while you're...
Not easily.
Oh.
not so that it shows in both places. But
All
I
right.
can, before you start, grab a kitten.
Battles P! Our Black Panther.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bettles P. Kotzebue. Bettles, say hi.
Say hi to me and Harry, and now say hi to YouTube.
All right.
All right.
Amy Engelhardt.
I'm going to stand and do one.
What?
What the? That's crazy. That's crazy, Amy. All right, I'm going to do a tune that I used to do with the Bombs, but of course in a different way because that was 4 people. And I'm just one today. I don't have Richard Green here, but this was supposed to be on the next album that we were recording, but I left the band, so I can't imagine why they didn't want things that I wrote on the next album. Okay, then. I think I may have done this on my last Emmy and Harry's, but I'm going to do it again. I try and change up the set for people who haven't seen stuff, but now we have people on 2 platforms and I don't know what you've seen. So here, this is a tune. It actually hasn't been recorded. I would like to at some point. Oh, the other thing you need to know is that I always talk a lot. Is that Alex and I were married in Alaska, miles and miles above the Arctic Circle, and B, I love small towns and I love small town news, and I like to go to, like mom and pop diners when I'm in small towns, which I've been in a lot of, touring and doing everything from volunteer vaudevilles to Bob's gigs. And I like to look at the papers, which sometimes have, the police water in them. And that's what I find the most interesting, to find out what small towns are afraid of and what's happening. Deep line Alaska, tall fig figure seen in community dumpster, thought to be bear, but in fact was a monster. Witnesses called the police, but it scared them so much they could not do anything else but scream and then run for their lives in Alaska. Mountains above them were sparkling silver. Under the moonlight, as one midnight monster played in the stuff they threw out. That's all this song is about. Highly shy, Kelly, Sally, the Stevens is here. Maitline, Alaska, tall figure seen in community dumpster, thought to be bear, but in fact was a monster. Witnesses called the police, but it scared them so much they could not do anything else but scream again and then run for their lives in Alaska. Mountains above them still sparkling silver. Under the moonlight, as one midnight monster played in the stuff they threw out. It just played in the stuff they threw out. And that's still all the song is about. Ba-da-bop.
Woo!
All right, sometimes, I thought, oh, people are going to tune in. They're just going to see someone singing and snapping, and they'd be like, great, it's a concert of someone just standing there singing. But you know what?
It's more.
It's more.
It's so much more.
It's more.
It's much more.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
I think.
No, there's more.
It? Is there more?
I thought there was more.
Oh, are you standing? I thought you were standing because you wanted to close.
No, I thought
show.
I thought you were going to go behind the piano.
Oh, I am going to go behind the piano. I'm trying to figure out what I should close with. By the way, if some of you are confused because I'm okay, if some of you are confused because I'm going back and forth and Alex is going back and forth in focus, it's because we have two live streams going on right now. We have Facebook Live at Emmy and Harry's Cabaret, and we also have YouTube Live. So we've had people in and out, and thank you so much for being here. All right, what should I do?
Well, I don't know, but then we're going to have the round, right?
We can. It's almost 6.
How long are we supposed to go?
An hour.
Oh, okay. Well, then, apparently I didn't do the thing that I thought I was going to do because I thought we'd have more time.
Well, you can close then.
I don't want to close.
You don't want to close.
I mean, I always want to close, but
I think we should close with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Why would we not close with you?
Because the people want their musics.
But I did some musics.
All right. Maybe I'll do something really quick and then you can do one more song.
Okay. All right. Let's do that.
All right. This is a piece. Hi there. This is a piece. This is a piece that is part of a series of stories that I did called Tales from the Trail, stories about dogs, sled dog racing, and mushing, and told from a variety of standpoints and points of view. This is called Girl Power. She came in through the checkpoint like anyone else, really. I mean, she didn't seem different, but you couldn't miss her. You can never miss her. She had her signature blue parka on, the one she's always wearing in the pictures, the one whose color is described in the catalogs as coral ocean blue. And her dogs were wearing matching coral ocean blue booties. She seemed focused and strong. Now, I've seen a lot of racers come in here who were focused and strong, but sometimes you can just look and tell that someone is on top of things. And I've lived in this village for 28 years, and I've seen a lot of guys who come through here in that checkpoint looking like that, and some women. But it had been a while since I'd seen a woman who was that fierce. The kids in the village know many women who are fierce. You have to be out here with the weather and the wilderness and the nearest hospital and state trooper an hour away by air. So you get tough or you get out. But still, we get TV out here. We have satellites and we read books. So kids here, like kids everywhere, are bombarded with images of women who take a back seat, women who apologize and defer, women who are not as focused or competitive as the men around them. Even some of the women mushers, sure, they're every bit as tough as the men, but some of them just seem grateful that they even got here and they forget that they're in a race. And to be fair, some of the men do that too. Not that I'm knocking it. Almost no one in the world can qualify and enter this race and make it this far up the trail. It's more than I will ever do. So in a way, getting here is its own reward. And every musher is tough, but some of that extra toughness that you can see beyond all the things they can't control, beyond all the weather, all the dog issues, all the trail and sled issues, all of the luck. Everyone who gets here is focused, some more than others, and maybe that's how you move up. Maybe that's how you win. When she came through, I could tell that she needed sleep. By this point in the race, everyone who comes through here needs sleep. So I pointed out the gym that's designated for mushers to sleep in, and she said, "Let me talk to the kids first, especially the girls." When she walked into the community building, the kids all gathered around her. I brought her hot coffee and she called the girls closer. "You can compete with the boys," she said, "on an even playing field." She made a point of looking each girl in the eye. You can be tough and smart, and you can win and still be girls. And then she gave booties to all of the kids as souvenirs: coral, ocean, blue booties. The little girls were in awe of her, treating her like a celebrity and putting her on a kind of pedestal. But she wouldn't have that. She drew them in and drew them out, letting them talk and really, really listening. "You're the inspiring one," she insisted. "Girls like you out here in the villages. I don't have a lot of spare room in my sled bag, but I feel like I bring every one of you with me on every mile of every race." She told the kids to find the one thing in life that they loved and are good at, and to work as hard as they can on that. That way, as long as you do your best, you'll always be winners. Remember, you can do so much more than you know. And then she took selfies with everyone who wanted one. All of the girls got a picture, and some of the boys too, although most of them had drifted off to watch TV or play video games. And only then, more than an hour after she came inside the community building, did she go back out to the gym to grab some sleep before she returned to her sled, did all her dog chores, and continued up the trail. A few nights later, the entire village huddled around a computer in the community center, watching and waiting. And when she crossed the finish line, wearing that coral, ocean, blue parka, her dogs decked out in matching coral, ocean blue booties, besting dozens of men and a handful of women, driving a team of dogs every bit as good as any I've ever seen, she told the announcer that it was wonderful to win. But she said, it's even greater to spend time with the next generation of fierce girls in the villages. The crowd around her cheered, and she paused and said, "I am looking up at the North Star right now. And I want all the girls who can hear me to go out and look up at the North Star and remember that you can do so much more than you know." And a dozen girls bolted up from around the computer and ran outside in our little village to look up. And then they ran back about 20 seconds later because it was below zero and they didn't have gloves or coats. A handful grabbed coats and gloves and hats and went back out, and they looked up. And when they came back a few minutes later, you could see that they were changed. They were stronger than they had been 10 minutes earlier. It's a different way of life out here. It's not easy. It's never easy. And the point isn't that any of our village girls will grow up to win dog sled races, although they might. The point is for all of them to grow up smart and focused, to be strong. And if one or two of them do grow up to be mushers, they'll know that they are tough enough to compete against men on an even playing field. And when one of those girls from my village or from anybody's village is in a position one day to win, I hope she too finds room in her sled bag to bring the inspiration of all the fierce girls on the trail. And I hope she looks up at the North Star and remembers a night in March when a stranger in a coral ocean blue parka came into her life and told her she was strong and focused and could inspire people. And even though this story is not about me, I know that I will never forget how powerful it was to see an exhausted woman wearing distinctive colors, making a point of talking to girls in a remote village for an hour before she even thought about the sleep she desperately needed, because that is the exact moment when I learned what it really means to be a champion. And now finishing us up, it's Amy Engelhardt.
Yes, we need some inspirational. I'm going to close with a tune that is from my album called Not Gonna Be Pretty. Available worldwide, and also if you send us $10 or more, I will send you a free download of it. And here's the thing. We need to remain vigilant and focused. And if that means you lose a day, you lose a day. That's okay. I was recently honored that this particular tune was rearranged by music educator extraordinaire Corey Axler at Council Rock High School South in Holland, Pennsylvania. He took this song from my first album, which is called Ounce of Hope, and made a vocal jazz arrangement of it for his students who were, of course, home now since school's been canceled, and they needed a project to do. So it was one of the first virtual choirs. Now everyone's like, oh my God, I can't see another virtual choir. But it was one of the first virtual choirs, and kind of went viral, and there were features on it in the local Philadelphia affiliates of NBC and ABC. Oh, Kathleen says they missed the last line.
I'm typing it.
Oh, Alex is typing it in for you. So if you would like to see the video of the virtual choir of Council Rock High School doing Ounce of Hope, which I'm going to do now, just go to YouTube and search for Ounce of Hope. You will find it, and the newscasts are online too. It was pretty special. And thank you to Corey and his students, who I usually visit every year and do a workshop with. So this is what we're going to leave you with today. Thank you so much for tuning in. All of the details where to contact us are in the chats, or at least where to contact me. And Alex is working on a mailing list. And if you want to be on his mailing list, write that in the chat. And we will take care of that. And if you sign up for mine, I'll send you a free MP3. It's true. And I can't wait to actually see all of you. I was supposed to have gone to New York, and I would be back now, but thinking of you all in New York. In the final hour of a slow decline, at the end of the road, there's still an ounce of hope. Though it's back in the corner of a box in a drawer, there are trace amounts, although the hope is just an ounce. But hope, like a seed, can towards the sun, and hope, like the truth, finds a home and takes root. And if you give it water, it'll run in a deep, dark confusion. Look no further than yourself. When you think you cannot cope, there's still an ounce of hope. Fix your focus on the good things. Find the reasons to go on. It's your faith and love that counts. And hope will grow from just an ounce. Yeah. And hope, like the truth, finds a home and takes root. And if you give it water, it'll run in a deep, dark confusion. Look no further than yourself. When you think you cannot cope, there is still an ounce of hope. Fix your focus on the future. Find the reasons to go on. It's your faith and love that counts. And hope will grow from dust and mountains. Yeah. Hope will grow from just an ounce.
Woo!
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Hannah and Emmy and Harry. Thank you to fictional characters. Watch our Facebook pages for the next one.
Sorry about the broadcasting data problems.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out next time. Thank
Much
you all
love
so
to you.
much.
Support small businesses.
And-
Order some takeout.
And artists. Bye.
Take care.
You want to say something?
No.
Okay.
Do you?
No, not really. Bye.
YouTube, no longer live.